Good morning, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. It is early in the morning here, the 1st of June in Portland, Oregon, in my permaculture food forest. I thought while the morning light is filtering in, it's not hot yet, I would show you all around and talk about what my garden looks like here at the beginning of June. So as we enter the side yard garden, the first thing you encounter is this very large quince, which provides shade and also a place for my 10-year-old to sit and hang out. The bronze fennel here is starting to get quite mature. I do let it flower, but it is an invasive here in my state, and so I don't let it go to seed. But the flowers attract beneficial parasitoid wasps, so it's worth keeping around through the flowering stage, and then I'll cut it back to the ground soon. The moles have been super active. Totally fine by me. They make little lumps in the path and little hills in the garden beds, but they don't do a lot of real damage, and they eat all kinds of grubs in the soil. I've been working on redoing this bed, adding more leaf mold and building it up. So I used some scrap wood. Someone asked recently about what you can do to create raised beds if you can't afford planks. There's always free wood on Craigslist, and a lot of it is not suitable for firewood, but is suitable for using as the edges of a raised bed. Now this is an apple tree from my yard that I took out, but the rest is off Craigslist. So I've been chopping and dropping here because I have run out of wood chips, and I want to create a forest floor situation here. So I want to remove extra branches and chop and drop them here to add moisture retention and help shade the plants. The Marionberry here has just about finished setting all of its fruit. You can see it'll be a good crop. I noticed a number of folks saying recently that their Marionberries were very thorny. Marionberries should be thornless, y'all. The seedlings can revert to a thorny state, but if your Marionberry is thorny, you likely have a seedling, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be completely thornless. So if you're stressing or struggling to work with a super thorny Marionberry, consider taking it out and getting one that is free of thorns. Underneath, all of my hardy geraniums are doing very well. When these are done blooming soon, I will cut them back to the ground, and they will then get another flush of growth. Folks asked about my lilacs that I got little tiny starts from Hulda Klager, and they're doing very well, getting quite large. In permaculture, we talk about keeping things where we will utilize them and where it makes sense and we don't expend a lot of energy. So I know these need to be watered every single day because they're just in 1-gallon pots, so I keep them by my hose. Same for my baby bay laurel tree here. It's in a pot right by the hose, so it gets plenty of water. The trellis that I put in early this spring is doing very well. The Clematis montana is starting to really ramble across it. It likely won't flower this year, but that's okay. My New Dawn rose underneath is flowering and will fill in. So I love that this gummy berry provides quite a bit of shade here. It's right outside my kitchen window. The hummingbirds love it. It does provide edible fruit, which won't be ripe for a little while yet. But really, I love the fact that it fixes nitrogen here and it provides shade in this really sunny spot. It makes it much more pleasant to work around the hose and take care of these seedlings in the heat of summer, having this shady spot. Now my Amity red raspberries are a little bit behind the Marionberries. They are still flowering, but also starting to set fruit. I love the fact that my cane fruit all produce at different times. There's a little bit of overlap, so I can enjoy those mixed berries, mixed berry fruit salads, but it really stretches out how much fruit I'm able to enjoy by having a diversity of cane fruits. I get berries from early June all the way into August. My quince has set very heavily this year. Quince are a tip bearer, and so sometimes you have to let them get a little rambly if you don't prune them at the right time of year in order to get quince. But look at this fruit set. There is going to be a lot of quince to process this October. I have a feeling I will be sharing with anyone and everyone who wants some. So the real showstoppers in early June are going to be roses and peonies and all of my flowering cottage garden plants that are starting to really crank out the blossoms. Doesn't make me any less permaculture-y because I have a lot of cottage garden plants. Those plants attract beneficial wildlife. They create habitat. They create beauty and get me out in my garden much more frequently. This is a peony that I got from my next door neighbor years and years ago. I've successfully finished bagging all of my apples, for the most part. This Falcon Blau rose is a rambler that is nearly thornless and tolerates quite a bit of shade, and that is why I have put it here in this archway. So emerging into the backyard, first thing in the morning, again, the roses are just extravagant. My Jude the Obscure rose down there at the end is my favorite. So right away you'll see that the potatoes this time of year are really going gangbusters. They're kind of eating up the path here. That's okay. The rain garden helps channel the water off of my roof here down into this reservoir here, and then it overflows into the rest of the garden down into my kidney bean shaped beds and swales in my annual veggie suntrap. My chickens can hear me and they want breakfast. So the rain garden really doesn't reach peak until August and September because it has lots of asters and rudbeckia and echinacea and things in it that are really late bloomers. But it does have some early bloomers that kind of fill in the gap and provide pollinator food, like this valerian, like the nepeta, like some of the simple roses. So I am working on utilizing the very last little bit of wood chips that I have to come in and fill in my annual veggie beds and get that coating of mulch down. Because we are predicted to have a hot, dry summer, I want to add at least 2 inches of mulch around the base of all of my annual veggies that need it in order to conserve moisture and help me water less often. Wood chips help prevent water loss from the surface of the soil. Here you can see I have some sweet meat, Oregon sweet meat, winter squash coming up. I have put some basil down here. My hope is that before these get huge and rambly, the little basils will be able to be harvested. I have basil everywhere. I never seem to be able to grow enough basil to supply our pesto needs, so I'm trying to put it in everywhere this year. Bush beans doing well. Allowing my Swiss chard here to go to seed so that it can self-sow. All of my summer squash has germinated. I really only grow about 6 summer squash plants. That provides enough food for my whole family, including shredding and freezing. Loads and loads. This is Black Beauty, which is a classic. Great zucchini. Now, I tried to plant along my new cattle panel arch here some old runner bean seeds that I had, and some of them did not germinate. most of them. I've only got 2. So I put in some Burgess Buttercup squash seeds here, and they have germinated, and I will use them to ramble up this trellis. And in the future, I will try actually getting some runner bean seeds and not using ones that were 8 years old that I happen to have in a cabinet. Some of my early tomatoes are already starting to set fruit. Folks often ask me what these white flowers are in the garden. These are radishes that I actually let go to seed. I let my radishes go to seed because they're such good bee food in June. Loads and loads of bee food. This time of year, the orchard around the chicken coop is really taking off. My Illinois evergreen mulberry is loaded with juvenile fruit. My persimmon in the corner is blooming. The grapes have taken off and have set loads and loads of baby grapes. Don't know if you can see them from here. The asparagus has all gone to fern by the time early June comes around. This is my asparagus patch. Soon I'll have to string up, I always have to put some stakes in twine to keep it from flopping into the path. So looking back across the garden from this angle, you can see we really don't have very much space here. So we have to maximize and utilize every inch of available space in order to produce all of the food that our family needs. Mornings, I'm always careful around the calendula. There are often bumblebees sleeping in the blossoms. Again, here's a look at my favorite Jude the Obscure. Great climbing rose. Pairs really well with Clematis montana here. You can see in early June, the gummy berries in this part of the garden are starting to ripen. You're gonna wait till they're really ripe and a little bit wrinkly before you eat them because they are very astringent otherwise. June, one of the chores that I need to stay on top of is that my plums are sending up all the water sprouts. So I have to come in and snap all of those off. Suckle pears here. I don't generally thin my suckles. My favorite berry, black cap raspberries, have all finished flowering and setting fruit. You can see a baby ladybug on this one. In the front yard, clover that I have sown as a cover crop is coming up all over the place. My insurance winter squash have all germinated, although all of the ones in the garden have germinated as well, so it will be a bumper winter squash year. I also have some spare basil I'm trying to find a home for. Front yard may not be big, but there is a lot packed in here. I've added a few new roses over the last year that were clearance rescue roses, and all are doing well. Also, all of the summer and winter squash has germinated in the front garden, and the slugs haven't been giving them too much of a problem. In this small front yard, there are 12 fruit trees, including this Oregon curl-free peach. You can see all of the peaches are looking really good, and the plant is very disease-free, despite peaches being a notoriously difficult crop. The plums have all set well. The persimmons are currently in flower. This is a Nikita's Gift persimmon. The aronia berry in the front yard is absolutely dripping with immature fruit, and all of the Hudson's Golden Gem apples I bagged are growing and doing quite well. I am ridiculously proud of my pawpaws, which are not native to the west coast of the United States. They have set so many fruit, and I'm looking forward to a great harvest in October. The Triple Crown blackberries in this part of the garden mature much later than the Marionberries in the side yard, so they are still in full flower. The blueberries, of which there are 6 in the front yard, have set very well for me this year, just as they have every year for the last decade. So thanks for coming around with me this morning, early in the morning, to view a few things that are doing well in my garden in June, a little glimpse of what it's like here to live in a permaculture food forest that is approaching maturity, and see what kind of abundance is possible in a garden on a small quarter-acre plot. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing and check out my Patreon in the description. Thanks.